We are talking about From the Depths, which is directed and written by Jose Montieth, and this is starring Angelica Briones. Now, this is not to be confused with Up From the Depths, which is an older shark-related movie. This one is a very different type of shark film. In fact, it's barely a shark film at all, which we'll discuss. You might say it's more of a psychological drama than anything else. Now, the story here focuses on this woman called Liz, who is a victim of a shark attack, and she went out with her sister and her boyfriend and was attacked by a shark. She was wounded, and her boyfriend and sister were killed. And it's now a year later, and she is suffering from survivor's guilt, but also she seems to be getting progressively worse. She's hallucinating, seeing sharks pretty much everywhere. And not only that, she now is starting to have kind of visitations, a little bit like American Werewolf from London, from her dead sister and ex-boyfriend, really, wanting her to go, talking to her and kind of wanting her to do things. For example, she just started a new relationship, and the psychological pressure is getting too much. Now, is she seeing things? Is there ghosts, or is it something else? You have to watch the movie to find out. So, I've seen some kind of reactions to this film, and a lot of people are slamming this film because they thought it was a typical shark attack movie. Now, I do understand the reaction if that's what you were expecting, because it is nothing like that. But I don't think it's fair to judge a movie based on what, like, your expectations about what you thought it was. I think you should actually judge a movie by the movie that is presented to you, not necessarily what you assumed it was going to be. I'll admit, I think that maybe the marketing here is sending people in a different direction, but nonetheless, I also don't think it deserves to be critiqued just because it's not the film you thought it was going to be. You have to kind of look at it, the film that it is, and then judge it on its own, merits and kind of weaknesses. That's how I would try and approach things. So, that being said, let's discuss what I think works. I actually think this is quite a unique film. I mean, I'm a big fan of shark attack movies. In actual fact, fear of sharks, I don't have many kind of phobias and stuff, but I do actually have somewhat of a fear of sharks. Thanks, Jaws. You've ruined me for life. I'm a bit nervous if I ever go on holiday and I'm in the water and stuff. I do get a little bit nervous. It doesn't stop me from going out and stuff, but I am kind of scanning the horizon all the time. So I kind of understand, and I'm not like that with anything else. Not snakes, not bugs, nothing. So I kind of understand, and I really do aquatic horror films. And one of my, if not my favourite subgenre of films. But I quite like the idea of having a little bit of a different take on it, and kind of having like a film about the survivor's guilt and about someone's experiences and how it kind of shapes someone. I actually found that idea quite fascinating, and it's a little sad that people just want to see another average shark movie. And I would enjoy that to a point, but I also like seeing things a little different. And I have to say, I think the idea here. We'll talk about some other things that I don't think work, but I think the idea at least is solid. I think maybe if it had been marketed differently, it would have avoided some of the kind of the negative side of things that it has got. But even so, I think again you have to just look at the film that we've got and judge it on that. But I like the idea. I've also seen people critique the acting. I gotta say, I thought the acting was good. I thought people did the cast is very small. Really, it's 3 people. And then kind of 2, I suppose you've got the kind of the ghosts or hallucinations or whatever you want to call them. But it's a very small cast, and I have to say our main character, I think she did a pretty good job, and her love interest I thought did a good job. And then the main 2 that we see on screen. Maybe the psychiatrist isn't particularly a great performance, to be fair, and the kind of like the rotting corpses that we see from our sister and boyfriend, again, it's a little bit different there because they're they're meant to be a little bit weird and kind of what's going on. But overall, I thought the acting was fairly good, and I have to say, I felt like I got to know the characters, and that's, you know, if you can have believable characters that you can kind of root behind, I think that is, you know, you're halfway there ultimately. And I also was having to say, they introduced something about halfway through the film, where these kind of the spirits or hallucinations or whatever you want to call them, they want Liz to do something specific, something which is a little dark, we'll say. I won't say what it is. And I was like, ooh, I want to see where that thread goes. So I, you know, when they say it, thinking, I don't really understand why they would ask that. Neither does Liz. You know, fair play. But I was kind of intrigued to see where that story thread was going. So let's transition to what doesn't work. And let's pick up with what I just said. I was intrigued where that idea was going. Where it led, I'm not sure I fully understood what the point of it was. It's the best way I'll describe it. I'm going to avoid spoilers here. But there's when we see the conclusion, it'll end in a certain way, and it makes you think, okay, is what they were, the message what they were saying, were they trying to get another outcome? But I don't see how that outcome would have happened had Liz gone through with their advice. Let me just say that. It didn't make sense. Now, in the context of the movie, you could say nothing makes sense. Again, you have to see it to kind of understand it. The ending itself, without giving it anything away, I have to say it was meant to be a little bit of a twist ending. I don't think it worked. I actually think it's going to be one of these endings where people are going, ugh. I think the filmmakers thought they were being clever. I don't think it was that clever, to be honest. But like I said, it doesn't make sense if with the kind of the rest of the film in a way, because what was said by the two dead people made it sound like it would have had an effect on the outcome, which I don't know if it would, is the best way to describe it without saying anything. So there you go. So that I have a little bit of issues with some of the plot, especially as the end kind of informs the rest of the film. As I've mentioned, I do think the acting generally is over good, but maybe this psychiatrist wasn't so good. The shark effects are, when we do see them, I mean, she has dreams, and then we have the hallucinations. They were obviously kind of CGI effects. Now I'm assuming this is why we didn't see the initial attack to begin with, because obviously the effects are, you know, are not brilliant, to be honest with you. But I think they maybe could have got around that by having maybe even stock footage would have worked. The computer effects are weak, but they look like computer effects. So you can kind of get away with, oh, they're hallucinations, so they're not kind of supposed to look proper. They're just dreams, but they look like computer. Unless you're dreaming about computer graphics. I don't know. It doesn't kind of, you know, you can make the shot look obscured or something, but if it looks like computer generated shot, then it doesn't really work. Again, it's low budget, but I would have. I don't know. Maybe I would have tried to write around that to a degree. The movie ultimately is relatively slow, and I was quite enjoying it, to be honest with you. But when you watch the film as a whole, you've watched the conclusion, I've got to say it does kind of like give you a case of blue balls. It's the best way I would describe it. I really enjoyed the kind of the dream sequences, actually, with the kind of like the dark night and stuff, even though it was day when she got attacked, because we do see an actual flashback very briefly. But it looked spooky, and I kind of quite liked the you know, the kind of the sound of the fin cutting through the water and stuff. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if the kind of also that when we see our corpses, again, it just looked like people with white face paint on and things like that. I would have thought it would have been better. Again, maybe it's a budget point, but to have maybe if they could do it with someone with like a chunk missing out, or like a bite or something like that, because they kind of look just like zombies, to be honest with you. And there's a point where one of them almost looks demonic with fangs and blacked out eyes. It didn't make sense. There's no reason for that. So I think the movie has some good ideas, but I think the execution may not have been brilliant, to be honest. But I don't think this movie is as bad as some of the kind of like user reviews, at least, that you would get. Because I think they're tainted by people's what a film that they thought they were going to see rather than looking at the film they have seen. So I'll give this one a 5 out of 10. Have you seen it? What did you think of it? Leave me a comment and I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.